To kick off the business session 2, let us welcome back to the podium Sean Bennett and introduce Brian Hickman, who's the Operations Manager, Director, and Director of Government Affairs for OOGA. Brian serves as the manager and director in the association in their roles, and he oversees the Oil and Gas Producers Underground Protection Service, the Ohio Oil and Gas Safety Council, and all OOGA's committees. He also assists with the association's governmental affairs activities before the Ohio General Assembly. And prior to OOGA, Brian served as the senior legislative aide to State Rep. John Hagan of the 50th House District. He holds a BA in psychology and political science from Otterbein. He attended Capital University Law School and resides in Westerville with his wife, Amanda, and their 2 children, Caleb and Aubrey, and also has one on the way in June. Didn't know that. Congratulations. And also, Brian, he's the go-to guy when we want to know anything in the Ohio Revised Code, so come on up. Please welcome these guys.
All righty. Good afternoon. I'm glad everyone made it back from lunch and didn't get stuck over at Easton with the frivolity of St. Patrick's Day. So here's a little legislative update. We spoke about this bill here last year, House Bill 8. It was a priority bill, still is a priority bill for the House in regards to unitization. Essentially why we put this bill together was land that was needed to be unitized, permits, unitization orders that had state lands were being held up with an ODNR. We wanted to put timelines on it to actually start the process to move along so we get some of these orders issued. Because really at the heart of this matter, it's about the sterilization of minerals for landowners, which is something that we should all oppose. It also deals with ad valorem taxation. What we started to see here several years ago were auditors trying to essentially put tax minerals on wells, and I should say minerals that aren't being developed. So essentially minerals that are in the ground, not being developed, and assessing ad valorem taxes on there, which is not the correct way to do so. So essentially all it is follow the law language. So it's just only a calculation used by the Department of Taxation as the proper way to assess ad valorem. The current issue, this kind of sums up really at the heart of the issue what this is about. This is a permit over in eastern Ohio. As you can see, the laterals, what the company wants to do, and this is I-70 running through that red there. The company wanted to have at the 8,000-foot lateral with I-70 in there, with the unitization order, with that being a state land, or I should say the easement's owned by the state, here's a pointer. All of the minerals on this side of I-70 would now then be sterilized. So to remove that roadblock, we wanted to put in the timeline, allowed the unitization of state lands to where we could unitize this acreage right here, allow mineral owners to be able to benefit and profit from the minerals they have. Without this language, without this process, the operator could essentially drill these laterals right here, thus sterilizing all the landowners on that side of I-70, which again, you think of it at its core, this is truly a landowner issue. This bill, last year when we discussed it, was just entering the House. We were going through the committee process. There was an amendment to clarify that no surface impacts would be on involuntary pooled land, as well as there's an amendment to remove state parks from being unitized. So again, some people misconstrued it as a backdoor way of drilling on state land. So again, we removed state parks from that, and also removes no surface impacts to state forests. The bill passed the House Energy Committee on a 13-0 vote unanimously on 3/17 of 2015. Passed the Ohio House the next day with unanimous vote 98-1. I can't remember the last time that an oil and gas bill passed unanimously in the Ohio House during any of the years. So thankfully, everybody saw the benefit of this bill, and they knew that this is not only about the oil and gas industry, but this is about royalty owners, landowners, and so forth. It is currently sitting in the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. The first hearing was on April 14th. They had the first reading, and there it has kind of sat since that time with no more hearings. They decided they were going to try to address unitization in the budget bill. Through some errors, I should say, in drafting, the only thing they addressed was ODOT-only properties were allowed to be unitized. However, the timelines were left off. So again, House Bill 8 is still a very necessary legislation that needs to be passed, and we are working with the Senate on kind of getting it moving through the Senate here this year. It is currently stalled. Some of the conversations we're having is they want to rework the bill and put it under a Senate bill number instead of a House bill number, and then pass it through their chambers and then back over to the House. So hopefully we should have passage of this legislation here by year's end. But it will be a very tight timeline. Next item up is Senate Bill 293. Every year since Governor Kasich has taken office, there's been the biennium budget, which is historically how we have done budgets in the state of Ohio. Again, he wanted to have the budgets not be every 2 years, but every year. So he created the mid-biennium budget. And over the past 6 years, that has always been the biggest fight that we've had as an industry. There have been a lot of oil and gas updates that have gone into the MBRs. Again, it's easier to move legislation through the MBRs because there's so much different language attached to it. It's not a single subject bill to where you can have the honest dialogue to figure out what's good policy versus what's bad policy. The reason I bring up Senate Bill 293 this year, somehow we got lucky, and our friends in the legislature realized that this is a very bad time to increase any regulations on the industry, and there's really no oil and gas legislation in Senate Bill 293. The section of code that does have to do with 293 is an effort to combine state parks and watercraft, and this goes back to the passage of state lands back in 2011. So there is essentially just a clarification that state lands were allowed to be, the leasing commission was established in September of 2011. And so, again, no real changes. However, we are monitoring House Bill 293 because this is also, anytime you open up the section of Code 1509, you have to be very wary because then somebody can slip unnecessary items in there. So we're going to continue to monitor it. And they're also opening up Chapter 3734 in regards to disposal of norm and T-norm via the landfills. So that is something we're going to monitor and check and make sure that nothing gets in there. 422, this is a House bill that was sponsored by Representative Sean O'Brien up in Trumbull County and John Patterson, also in northeastern Ohio. This is essentially an underground injection control bill. Is the legislation needed? No. I can pontificate on what's going on, and I would assume that Representative Sean O'Brien was in a tight primary for the state Senate, and he wanted to make sure that he put himself over the edge and wasn't called a friend of the industry, so he put together a bill and came after the oil and gas industry. And this bill essentially would create a 2,000-foot setback from any dwellings, body of water, roads, railroad, and railroads and occupied dwellings. What was the other one?
It's litany.
Yes, pretty much anything. So,
2,000-foot setback, period.
Yes, 2,000-foot setback from anything. So if you kind of think about it, the closest place you could permit a UIC well would be Pennsylvania here in the state of Ohio, which is pretty useless. It also asked the chief to deny permits if a well was within a 100-year floodplain, as well as 20 kilometers of a known fault line. I don't know when we went to Canada, but they decided to put 20 kilometers in there instead of saying how many miles it should be. Also, we asked for chemical disclosure of brine when it's injected into the well, something that we do not agree on, as well as additional notification and publication to the general public before wells being permitted. Essentially open up Pandora's box for the activists to create a stir anytime we permit a UIC well, thereby essentially making the process much more difficult. For transporter, the bill impacts your company by submitting daily logs on what you're hauling. Must provide written documentation of the brine, require installation of telemetric sensors, and it also removes the in and out of district UIC disposal fee and makes it a 5-cent flat fee. The bill was referred to the House Energy Committee on January 20th of 2016. I've talked to the chairman. We all recognize how bad this bill is, and I'm pretty sure that we will not ever hear about this bill again and we'll have no further hearings. Again, it's not a piece of legislation that's needed. This is more for political posturing than actual good legislation. Good news for Representative O'Brien. He won his primary, so I don't think he's hopefully will not have the appetite to continue following along and down this dangerous path. Severance tax, it wouldn't be a winter meeting without a severance tax discussion. Last year, we were in the midst of a very, very difficult severance tax discussion. Again, it came up once again, and at exactly the wrong time, and we all know why it's the wrong time with declining prices. Through the conversations, through working through the legislature, and again, our friends in the House and the Senate decided that it was not the right time to increase severance tax on the oil and gas industry. What they did do was put together a 2020 Tax Policy Commission to study really what are severance tax rates in other states, if there was a severance tax increase, what would it be used for, and how does actual severance tax mechanisms work? What are post-production costs, and what is cost recovery? Really trying to understand what severance tax is. On its face, people thought severance tax was a very easy issue. Until you start getting the mechanics of it, they realize there is far more to this than what they originally proposed last year. Again, the report stated the following. This report came out here in the fall. What we all know, the industry is suffering from wide price fluctuations. It's difficult to do a full analysis comparing Ohio to other states. Again, not the same reservoir, not the same tax policy. Again, not the same budgetary requirements. So no severance tax was recommended. But what was interesting in that report was they decided they wanted to discuss a trigger mechanism. So if the price of oil or natural gas gets to a certain rate, that is when a severance tax would kick in. I guess it sounds good in theory if you just want to pass a severance tax. However, as a legislator, I don't think I'd ever want to pass a severance tax if there's not going to be any benefit. And so you're going to pass something when oil prices come back and you're out of office. And so, again, what's the point? We'll continue to fight this. And again, when you think about a trigger, there are a lot of different issues involved in that really cause us concern. And again, how long do prices have to meet at a certain level before the severance tax kicks in? What do you do about hedging? And again, what do you do when you have just the wide swings in pricing? Other tax issues. Another issue that's kind of come up here recently over the past several months. The Ohio Department of Taxation is currently auditing companies based on the collections of sales tax. As many of you in this room know, we do enjoy an exemption under the production of oil and gas here in the state of Ohio, as well as manufacturing exemptions through the tax code. Several other considerations and exemptions are considering. Again, that is the manufacturing and refining tax exemption that we have within the state. We are pursuing and put together a work group to work on this issue. So if you are, again, having any correspondence, please let us know. We're putting together a work group. We're starting the dialogue and working on a common defense for the industry in regards to this issue. Ad valorem assessments. If you're an operator, you probably received a letter in the mail from your county auditor. And the auditors essentially want to remove voluntary production numbers. So get rid of the Form 6 and Form 6As. They look at doing this as a way to streamline government. They want to start using ODNR production numbers as a way to start collecting ad valorem assessments instead of having us fill out the Form 6 and Form 6As and hand them in to the county auditors. Conceptually, I don't think this is necessarily a horrible idea. However, they did this in a vacuum, and there are a lot of concerns that they're not going to be doing this correctly. And in conversations with the County Auditors Association, they have they've agreed to start opening a dialogue to make sure that we get this done correctly, or possibly push this out another year if there are a lot of outstanding issues by the time we get done with our meetings. Again, several county auditors are already saying that Form 6 and Form 6As are no longer required. Again, this is what they're looking for 2016. If I was an operator, I'd still fill out the Form 6 and Form 6As. In conversations with several operators, the production numbers have been way off, sometimes double, triple, or quadruple from what the reported production from the Form 6 and Form 6A is. So again, the problem is, where's the due process if the county auditors send us a bill? And will this be a tax bill, a pre-tax bill? And these are conversations I brought up with Alan Harold, the Stark County auditor, as well as the head of the association. And he recognized our concerns and, again, is committed to working through this issue. Underground protection, I want to have Brian discuss this. Senate Bill 378.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, so underground damage prevention law. Let me kind of really quick give you a generalization of the federal law. Long story short, federal A11 law had passed, and the federal government had given authority for enforcement of that law to the states. The federal government was concerned that some of these states had not enacted an appropriate enforcement mechanism for that program. So the federal government had set this ideal date, maybe that's the best way that I can put that, of January 1st, 2016 to get enforcement on the books. So long story short, Senate Bill 378, that was sponsored by Senator Bill Coley, was kind of spawned out of that view. It passed into law in December of 2014 with an effective date in March 23rd of 2015. So once that bill was passed, then the PUCO, who was given general authority over this program, was tasked with a rulemaking. Again, what does this rulemaking do? Essentially, it's to enforce Ohio's underground damage prevention law. So PUCO introduced some rules, and they were finally approved in December 4th of 2015, with the effective date, again, of January 1st, 2016. Now, if I can summarize those rules, what does it mean to the oil and gas producer? The first thing, there is a safety, I believe it's actually called a safety registration fee. Per law, that fee is to the PUCO for the management and funding of this program. The fee has statutorily could be as high as $50 or could be as low as $1. The fee, we've heard, will be $25 and will be for all users of Ohio's underground system. So what does that mean? First of all, it does not include landowners who would call either of Ohio's protection services. What it does mean is if you are a member of OGPUPs, if you're a member of OOPS, if you're a contractor who has contacted one of the protection services, you should expect to receive an invoice from the PUCO. And it will be a $25 invoice. It will be for the year, and you will be covered for that year. I've been told that that invoice is desired to be sent out on April 1st. No, that is not an April Fool's joke. But again, if you're a producer, I would fully expect to see that. Now, what I would caution everyone in this room is that whether you like or dislike a $25 fee, I would caution that non-payment of that fee could lead up to a $2,000 fine by the PUCO. So that is the first part. And the second part is, again, understand that we do have this enforcement mechanism in the state of Ohio. So what does that mean? That means if you're an operator and there is a contractor that did not call a protection service that is operating around your lines, someone has hit a line. Now there's that mechanism in Ohio law. So it is you're right, you can go ahead and report that to the PUCO. The PUCO will then do kind of a fact-finding, do some general information, and send it to the Underground Technical Commission. And that UTC will then go through and make a decision for a recommendation of potential fine. So again, what does that mean? It means the enforcement is here. You have a mechanism to protect the enforcement of activities around your facilities. And again, what I would inform all the members in here is, remember, by Ohio law, you are required to join one of two Ohio Protection Services: Ohio Utilities Protection Service, OUPS, or the Oil and Gas Producers Underground Protection Service, or OGPUPs. So if you are commercially producing oil and gas in the state, I highly recommend that you join one of those services. One, it's required by law, and two, see previous comment about PUCO fines. And on that note, I will turn it back to Sean.
Yep. Thank you, Brian. Next item on the agenda, this again isn't legislation moving forward. This is legislation that was passed in Senate Bill 315 here several years ago. This regards the country of origin for steel reporting. You may have gotten letters from the division on this requesting information in regards to what country did your steel come from? This is amended in Ohio Revised Code section 1509-16 and requires owners to report country of origin for casing, tubing, drill pipe, drill couplings, and steel collars. It was effective back in March of 2015. And again, ODNR is required to establish a form for submission. They stated that the report will begin March 31st of 2016. And again, report any steel used from 4/1/15 to 12/31/15. In conversations with the division, they, in their tracking, essentially what they said is if you cannot determine the country of origin, you are not required to report it. So don't lose any sleep over it. Try to figure out what it is, and if you don't, you're not required to report it. I think is the simplest way to kind of put that forward. So if you don't really feel like, putting too much effort into it, it's not your fault. You're not held responsible. Another federal issue, PHMSA crude by rail rule. Recent federal rule packages on shipping of unrefined products by rail passed, I want to say last year. Tucked away in this was a small little portion in regards to testing of crude for hauling on the roads. Again, where everybody was focused on the rail component, this piece of regulation kind of slipped underneath everyone's noses, and they did not know that this was put in. They have started reaching out to states and operators to have them to begin a testing program on the volatility and the flash point of their crude before they ship it out by truck and going to refineries. So if you are contacted about this, please let us know. We are working with IPAA as well as APIs engaged on this issue, and we're still trying to figure out if they do have the authority to start starting these testing programs and monitoring the flash point of the crude before it hits the road. This is something that nobody agreed to when the crude by rail rules were passed last year, and we're still checking if they have the jurisdiction to do so. So please let us know. Methane regulations. I mentioned this in my comments here this morning. Last week, the Obama administration said that they're going to start regulating methane emissions from existing sources. Again, this is a new focus on the oil and gas industry. Historically, they've done it on new sources and not existing sources. And again, they're going to start going after, again, the midstream sector, the upstream sector, pretty much from drilling and completions all the way to the end user. And again, this goes to pipelines, hoses, pumps, et cetera. Stakeholder outreach is going to be, beginning here in the next several weeks. This is going to be a very long process. This rule package will not be passed this year. I think it's one of those, again, every 4 years you have a president who writes a lot of bad rules and waits to see if the next administration is going to take the reign on these rules. We'll see how this goes. Again, if there is one regulation out there that is going to have a significant impact on the oil and gas industry, it's going after regulating existing sources. This is an issue that we're going to continue to monitor. Again, no formal rules have been established. They're at the very beginning stages of this announcement. They're going to go out and start reaching out to industry and talk about different emission control devices, prices, and efficiencies. I think you'll probably start seeing a formal rule probably here this fall and then kind of work it through next year. Hopefully, the next president does not take this rule up, but we'll be working with IPAA on commenting on these rules and being involved in the process. Next up, we have Rhonda Rita. We are actually going to make some legislative changes to OOGA's program, and I want Rhonda to come up and kind of talk about those changes we're going to have moving forward. Now, oh, there it is. You got to hit the, get the pictures up.
Well, one picture's up. Thank you, Sean.
If you hit the button, the rest will come.
Okay. It's hard to believe, but almost 20 years ago, the leadership of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association, and at a winter meeting here 20 years ago, actually discussed the concept of creating, at that time, only the second oil and gas energy education program in the country. And the leadership of the industry and the Ohio Oil and Gas Association did agree to move forward. OOGA is governed under primarily 3 documents. One, Ohio Revised Code 1510. Ohio Revised Code 1510 only created the mechanism, though, to create OOGA. Okay, and it was the oil and gas producers here operating in the state of Ohio that then had to pass a program, and they voted on it in a referendum, and then the program became effective in April 1st of 1998. At that time, what was the charges of OOGA? Well, one, yes, people were still talking about who shot J.R. Ewing, okay? I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty thrilled when he got shot. Second, Beverly Hillbillies. We still get calls at the office today. Hey, you know, can you send a digger out? Because I think I got something's black and bubbling coming up out of the ground. This is somebody from Cincinnati, okay? Images we still can't get over. And also, without a doubt, the oily duck image. In fact, at that time, this was the curriculum being taught in the state of Ohio. OOGA's going to give a more formal presentation tomorrow at 10:15, so I just wanted to give you that very brief background. The second thing that OOGA was asked to address when the oil and gas industry passed this was at that time we also had 3 kids that died and playing around oil field equipment. And I did see Doug Kitchen here earlier today, and I know that on one of those locations, Doug Kitchen actually happened to be the volunteer firefighter responding on that particular location, so we were asked to address safety. Much has changed, and again, this program was expanded. Your program was amended in 2007. We asked the industry to increase the funding so that we could do a lot more on behalf of the industry, and again, we're going to give a full update. So what's changed in almost 20 years? Not only has the public outreach programs changed, but so has our industry. And what we need to do is we need to not only address the change in the industry, obviously the economic times, but also the initial roles of OOGA has changed significantly. So underneath, as we've done in 1997, what was done in 2007 is the first process that needs to be done with the help of the Ohio Oil and Gas Association as the industry's lobbying group, is we need some changes in Ohio Revised Code. Some of these are just cleanup language. In addition to that, we will also need to amend the program, which the producers here in the state of Ohio are the ones and only the ones that can approve or disapprove of that program. Very quickly, the OOGA board, we have a shale advisory committee, as well as a special OOGA work group, had more than 15 meetings over the last 7 months to come up with those recommendations. And just very briefly on the legislative part, we just need some clarification as it relates to condensate. We need to redefine only in certain areas who an independent producer is, because those are the ones that fund OOGA. Applying, again, just all definitions in 1509 to make them consistent with 1510. Clarify that the producer is an owner or operator of record. Broaden the purpose of the marketing program to include training. You guys know we do a lot of fire training, do a lot of safety training. Is workshop for teachers considered training? So just real simple clarifications. Most of what the OOGA board, there's some roles with the TAC, it's just clarifying the administrative roles in that, distinguishing who can vote in this referendum, and it is only producers that will be able to vote yes or no when we get to that part. And we're also seeking to add 6 additional board seats, which would be made up of primarily horizontal producers. Currently, most of our board is conventional producers, and then just extend some civil liability protection to employees as well. That's primarily for the fire training program. The leadership of the oil and gas industry is also recommending some changes, not only having a first purchaser option, but for horizontal producers to allow them to make a direct pay option. And also, again, just clarification on different forms. So in addition to the revised code, which again, under OOGA's leadership as the lobbying organization would be assisting in that part, here comes the proposed amendments, once the legislation is done, and most of these are going to mirror revised Code 1510. This one probably most important that people have been asking about, the leadership of the oil and gas industry. And again, that is both OOGA and OOGA, the work group, Shale Advisory. We are wanting to actually reduce the assessment rate by 50%. Given the economic times right now in the industry, it's the right thing to do. And also by being able to bring on more of the shale operators, we're hoping that not only we can give a break to the conventional producers, but also be able to have that additional revenue source from shale operators that are not currently producing because they don't follow the same definition. Again, this goes back to adding a producer pay option. And most of this that you see highlighted here are just similar changes that would be mirror what is in Ohio Revised Code. And by the way, we have a copy of all of this, and this has just been cut and pasted from what has already been approved by the OOGA board and also the Ohio Oil and Gas Association Board of Directors. So again, most of these I've already mentioned. That's why I'm clipping through these pretty quickly. What's our timeline? Again, we have to pass the legislation. And this was done by OOGA, and also OOGA testified in both 1998 as well as 2007. And then we also have to have a series of lot of other groups that have to approve this prior to being able to move forward these amendments. Trying to go through these as quick as possible. Then we've got this program language. And again, that's what the producers vote on, and that is what the industry created in 1998. So we're going to amend that program language, and then we go through a petition process. The industry has already approved what we hope to be the amended language. Right now, what's at our booth is a petition process. So before we can take this amended language to ODNR and have the industry vote, we now have to go through a petition process, and we need at least 100 producers here in the state of Ohio to sign that petition. In 1998 and 2007, we had over 600 of you sign that petition. And somebody had requested, what is the definition of who can sign that petition? And currently, that means a person who complies with both of the following. They must produce oil or natural gas and is not engaged in refining of either product, and they derive a majority of their income from ownership or properties in producing oil and gas. And so right now we're going to go through that petition process. Then the TAC has to take a look at that, and then there is a series of approvals that the TAC needs to do. They need to approve the referendum date, they need to approve the polling places, who's the election agent, notice of approval, notice of the publication approval, and again, it's a pretty long process that we need to go. So what we are asking for today is for any producers here in the state of Ohio to please help us out and sign this petition so that we can move forward with many of these changes that we would like to make. And so with that, if you've got any questions, I would recommend that you talk to Sean Bennett. I'd recommend that you talk to David Hill, president of OOGA. I'd recommend you talk to Jim Aslanides, the vice president of OOGA. Recommend that you talk to any of the OOGA board members. Marty Miller, I see Sarah Tipka sitting out there. I know Ralph Talmadge is out here. Ron Whitmire, Ron Groschine, or anybody. But again, what we're trying to do is really reflect what's going on today in the industry, and we're also trying to address not only the change of the industry, but also the economic times so that we can continue to do our best to help represent the oil and gas industry in a very, very positive way. And again, we look forward to, you can see I'm still going on all these procedures because there's a lot of them. And again, we encourage you to listen to the annual report tomorrow. Come visit our exhibit. Again, talk to any of the board members. Talk to your OOGA staff. Remember, we work for you. You can certainly get more information on any of the social medias, but more importantly, thank you for supporting this program for the last 18 years. When this program was formed officially 18 years ago, after you voted on it as an industry, the price of oil was $9, and the price of natural gas was $2.20. And so you guys supported us through these years, and it is an honor to be out there advocating on your behalf. Thank you very much.
It's kind of scary that I kind of wish we got back to $2.10 natural gas again. Any questions from the legislative update that I provided here earlier or for Rhonda here today? Seeing none, and I can't see very well because that light has blinded me. So seeing none, then that concludes this presentation. Thank you very much.